Hi everyone, welcome to Nightshades as Aphrodisiacs. My name is Kobe Michael. I am author of the Poison Path Herbal and the Poison Path Grimoire. I also run the poisonersapothecary.com, which is an online store and resource for people interested in the poison path. The poison path is focused on poisonous and psychoactive plants, their medicinal, historical, spiritual uses, their folklore, and just the interesting stories that they all have. So as poisonous plants, they are very dramatic characters that have been used in various different ways throughout history, um, as medicine, as weapons, as means for murder, and other malefic sort of pursuits. So this presentation is on nightshades as aphrodisiacs. Nightshades are one of the main families of plants of interest to the poison path. So this is the nightshade or Solanaceae family. This consists of things that are super common and well known to us, like tomato, potato, pepper, eggplant, tobacco, a lot of our most important food crops, but also more chemically active botanicals like deadly nightshade, datura, henbane, mandrake, which are all some of the world's most important medicinal herbs, sources for, even modern pharmaceutical medication. They've led to the discovery of some of the brain's most important neurotransmitters, and have played a really important role in human evolution in general. They are chemically potent, so they have the potential for poisoning when used incorrectly or in the wrong contexts, but they are very important medicinal herbs and have a lot to teach us in that regard when it comes to our relationship with the natural world. So typically, since they are referred to as poisonous plants, they have gained kind of a baneful or malevolent reputation. So when we look at planetary correspondences, all poisonous plants, including nightshades and wolfsbane, poison hemlock, yew tree, all of the plants that have this poisonous property fall under the rulership of Saturn. So Saturn in planetary astrology, being known as the greater malefic, is kind of associated with all of these dark and scary things. But what we don't talk about as often are the aphrodisiac qualities that so many of these plants in the nightshade family have. So that's what we'll be focusing on today, because the aphrodisiac aspects of these plants are probably one of the main and most important qualities when we look at the ways that these plants have been used throughout history and in different parts of the world. So we will just explore a few of the main plants in the nightshade family and their aphrodisiac uses, whether medicinally, being ingested or consumed in some way, or their use in love magic. Turn on my screen share. So what we see here on this first slide are sort of the four main plants in the nightshade family. On the left, we have datura, which is also known as thornapple. To the right of that is black henbane. And then to the right of that, We see mandrake root, which is one that you've all probably heard of. And then also to the far right is deadly nightshade, or Atropa belladonna, belladonna for short. So these all belong to the Garden of Venus. Venus being the planetary ruler of all things involving love and beauty and abundance and attraction. So all of the plants associated with that fall under this realm known as the Garden of Venus. So historically, there would have been what was called pleasure gardens, where all of these aphrodisiac herbs would have been grown and cultivated for their use in various different aphrodisiac preparations. So what are aphrodisiacs? This is a very broad category. Just like poison is a very broad category, it encompasses a variety of different plants, fungi, even things of animal origin that have a very broad and diverse set of different effects. So aphrodisiac can mean a lot of different things. Some of them are warming and stimulating. Other ones are going to be more relaxing, more intoxicating, more euphoric. They could be things that support the body's overall health. So adaptogens, nootropics, things that just basically support all of the body's systems and get them operating in optimal condition. So they will take care of a lot of different issues that can potentially lead to, sexual problems, problems with sexual performance, which is one of the reasons that people may look into working with aphrodisiacs, is that they're looking to, enhance their performance. That's not always going to be the case. Sometimes it's just about enjoying the experience, or even working with them on your own by yourself, because they do have a lot of benefit, as far as working with them solo. As medicinal herbs, they can also support the health of the sexual organs. Some of them, when used topically, can increase sensitivity. They can be stimulating, increasing our sense of touch, our feelings, which are, supportive for the idea of them being used as aphrodisiacs. So they can be a lot of different things with a lot of different effects. So it would all depend on, what the person is looking for, what their reason for wanting to work with aphrodisiacs is in the first place. So with the nightshade family in particular, the nightshade family is known as the Solanaceae family. Solanaceae means to soothe. So these are plants that have been used for pain relief, for relaxation, for sedation, even early forms of anesthetic. So all kind of dependent on how they're applied and in what context and what type of formula is being implemented is determining how those plants affect the body and consciousness and perception. They are also known for having kind of an overall erotic tone as far as the feelings and experiences that they can induce when we work with them entheogenically. So entheogen, meaning to connect with the divine within, is a term used to describe psychedelic or psychoactive plants and fungi that have a important ceremonial use. So used historically to access altered states of consciousness, to have experiences of the divine, connect with the spirit world, engage in different rituals and ceremonies. So the nightshade family falls under that category. So in certain contexts, they can be relaxing and soothing and help with pain relief and um, dreaming, visions, all that sort of stuff. So Solanaceae means to soothe. They were often also incorporated into aphrodisiac preparations. So psychoactive aphrodisiacs, ceremonial wines, massage oils, incense, different things like that that were meant to sort of induce a more Venusian atmosphere. The word beneficium is a Latin word that is associated with the crime of poisoning. It's also intimately connected to maleficium, which is the Latin word for witchcraft or wrongdoing, if we look at it in a very general sense. So beneficium in particular has this connection to poison, but also to witchcraft. Particularly love potions that would have been used to sort of overpower the will of another person, make them more amorous, more receptive to one's sexual advances. Because these preparations were also made with potentially poisonous plants, not only were they being used in these sort of sordid contexts to make other people more receptive or to render them unconscious in some cases, they also had the potential of causing harm and poisoning them if the dosages weren't right. So this was very much a crime and a problem in the ancient world, so that's where this terminology comes from. So it's here where we start to see sort of the dark and the light side of these aphrodisiac preparations, the balm and the bane. So on one hand, they can be very soothing, very calming, pain relief, medicinal, and then on the other hand, depending on how they're being used and in what way they're being used, the dosage, they can also be, harmful in a number of other ways. So working with aphrodisiacs entheogenically, a couple of different reasons for that could be to enter into trance states. So through the excitation and stimulation and the arousal, the person is able to enter into an altered state of consciousness. So this would be kind of like a meditative state. There's different ways of inducing those states of consciousness. Some of them are going to be more inhibitory. So breathing techniques, deep meditation, being very still. Others are going to be more excitatory, which would include, drumming, moving around, dancing, entering into some of these more ecstatic states that are enhanced with different aphrodisiac preparations. This could be employed for raising energy. So taking that energy of arousal, kind of focusing it and concentrating it within the body and then releasing it towards a specific intention. So this is where we see it used more in ritual and spell work, where the sexual energy that is raised is then directed towards a specific purpose. And they can also be used for personal healing. So reconnecting with those feelings of euphoria and love and sexuality as a form of personal empowerment, heart healing, recovering from traumatic experiences, and sort of reconnecting to that loving Venusian energy. The first plant that we have is mandrake. This is probably one of the most well-known and one of the most popular as far as its history and the amount of time that people have been working with this plant for its aphrodisiac effects. So it goes back as early as ancient Egypt. probably even before that, that people were aware of the aphrodisiac properties of mandrake. It would have been infused into ceremonial wine, along with other entheogenic plant materials, things like opium poppy, cannabis, blue lotus, all would have been consumed for their aphrodisiac and entheogenic effects. We even see mandrake being mentioned in the Bible, in the Old Testament, the book of Genesis, showing the sort of historical knowledge of the aphrodisiac properties of this plant, going all the way back to the time that the Old Testament was written, showing that, the mandrake was something that people knew about. It was common knowledge for them to include this story. So basically, the way that the story goes is that there are two women, Rachel and Leah. Rachel has a son who discovers some mandrakes growing in the field and harvests them. And then Leah finds out and she goes to Rachel and asks her for some of her son's mandrakes. Well, as it turns out, Leah was also apparently sleeping with Rachel's husband. And so Rachel's like, you've already stolen my husband. Like, why are you going to try and take my son's mandrakes too? And then Leah says, well, you can lay with your husband tonight in exchange for the mandrakes that your son found. So Rachel was like, okay, deal. So that was the deal. They did that. Rachel slept with her husband, got pregnant, had another baby. So that was a good thing, and she was happy about it. But Leah really wanted to get her hands on those mandrakes, and it doesn't really specify why. But within the context of the story and the other themes, it's definitely something that has a sexual overtone. So in this case, the mandrake being used as an aphrodisiac was used more for fertility and conception, which we also see in medieval sorcery. So the mandrake root as a fetish or talisman or magical object was something that was very valuable and coveted throughout this time period. So its reputation spread throughout Europe, and everyone wanted to get their hands on these mandrake roots because they were said to bring protection, prosperity, love, fertility, pretty much anything that the keeper of the mandrake root would desire, it was capable of gathering and bringing back to that person. So there were a lot of rituals surrounding the harvesting of the mandrake root, as well as taking care of it and kind of maintaining its magical power through various offerings. And we see this in other magical roots as well. I've put a few different examples there. These are not members of the nightshade family, but just kind of an example of, mandrake being as much a specific genus of plant as it is a concept. So we see all of these other sort of human-shaped roots or roots shaped like human hands, or plants that just have really sturdy, big roots being used as these magical objects, believed to contain a spirit that can then be petitioned and sent out for various different magical purposes. So ginseng in particular, which is also medicinally taken as an aphrodisiac and an adaptogen and used to enhance performance, had a really similar reputation to the mandrake. So the way that it grows also can sometimes resemble the human body, which is part of what gained mandrake its magical power, was the fact that it resembled human figure. Ginseng also does this as well, and it was originally a lot more rare to find ginseng growing in the wild, but because it became so medicinally valued, it was also more widely cultivated and people started farming it. Galangal is another root that is connected to love magic and fertility and sexual performance, as well as Samson's snake root or echinacea, as it's commonly known, that would be carried for male virility, male sexual performance. And then master root, which is related to angelica root. The master root, very similar to how mandrake would be used and the different things that it would be used for. So it brings the owner mastery of all things, prosperity, protection, love, luck, all of the good things that people would be seeking out of life were believed to be able to be gained through working with and feeding these roots, carrying them on the person, making different offerings to them, and petitioning the spirit that was believed to live in the root. The last and final magical root is on the sort of opposite end of the aphrodisiac spectrum. That is Jezebel root. Jezebel root is a type of iris, and it was used by sex workers in particular to attract wealthier clients, and also to make the clients more generous with the money that they were spending. So it was essentially, a way to increase the paycheck through using their charisma, seduction, personal charms to attract these people and get them to spend as much money as possible. So it's kind of a patron root of sex workers, as well as anybody that has a job that kind of relies on their personality, their charisma, their charm. So like servers, bartenders, entertainers of all different kinds can work with Jezebel root to increase their success, increase their income. And it can also work as a protection talisman for people in those fields. In addition to that, it's also used in a spell that is called the Curse of Jezebel, which is essentially a hex that uses the root to channel a person's anger or vengeance and direct it at a specific person. So here we start to kind of see like the dual side of the Venusian magic, on the one hand, fertility, conception, aphrodisiac, and then on the other side of it, more manipulative, glamour, seduction, illusion, domination, kind of showing those dual aspects of Venusian magic. Next, we have thornapple. Thornapple is one type of datura, Datura stramonium. There are a variety of other types of daturas that grow all over the world. So we've got Datura mattel, which grows in India and parts of Asia. It grows in Africa. We've got Datura inoxia, Datura stramonium, which is native to North America. Datura stramonium has since spread to Europe and other parts of the world as well. And then in South America, we've got the brugmansias, which are known as tree daturas or angel's trumpets, which are very closely related, but slightly different in appearance. So being a more tropical climate, they grow a lot bigger and are basically trees with datura flowers hanging off of them. But very similar chemical constituents. And we see all of the different varieties of datura being used in a very similar way medicinally all around the world. as well as being known for their aphrodisiac properties. So it is something that is worked with carefully, because there is the potential of poisoning, because it is one of the more chemically active members of the nightshade family. But we see it being used in smoking blends, aphrodisiac oils, and ointments. In particular, it is used in tantric practices to raise sexual energy. In this case, the datura seeds are used in smoking blends along with cannabis, and people would consume those to raise their sexual energies and access these different states of consciousness to connect with the masculine and feminine aspects of divinity through the goddess Shakti and the god Shiva. Shiva being represented by the datura plant and Shakti being represented by the cannabis plant. They also have jugo de toloache, which is a preparation used in Mexican folk magic using the plant Datura anoxia, which grows natively there. Jugo de toloache is another example of sort of the light and dark side of Venusian workings. So it is used in a variety of different forms of love magic. So particularly people will use the jugo de toloache, which basically means datura juice or toloache juice, to ensure fidelity. So they would use it to keep their lovers from straying by putting a few drops of the juice in their food or whatever they were drinking to essentially manipulate them into, not going out and cheating on them. So this would be to sort of regain their attention. It is also used to help with any kind of addictive or obsessive behavior. So it's been used for sex addiction, alcohol addiction, different things like that to help kind of bring the person back to a more balanced and grounded place. In addition to that, it's also used in more manipulative forms of love magic. So its reputation is very much kind of dual-sided as far as how the particular person is using it, what they're using it for, kind of determines whether it's seen as a good thing or a bad thing. But it is very much respected and in some cases feared because it is such a powerful plant preparation. So that is due to the scopolamine content. Scopolamine is one of the tropane alkaloids found in the chemically active members of the nightshade family. Scopolamine in particular is sedative and hypnotic. It has been used as a chemical truth serum in different interrogation scenarios to get people to divulge information. It's also been given in mental hospitals to essentially sedate and calm patients down when they're becoming aggressive or having outbursts, which also is kind of ironic because, overdoses of scopolamine or datura can also cause people to become very psychotic and aggressive. So kind of that homeopathic idea of smaller amounts of a substance that causes certain symptoms is capable of sort of mitigating those symptoms in the appropriate dosages. Scopolamine is also the main active component in something that's called devil's breath. So devil's breath is something that is known throughout the world. Probably goes by different names depending on what part of the world that we're talking about. But it has been used in criminal activity to essentially drug victims and make them more compliant so that it makes it easier for people to commit crimes against them, to get them to do things that they wouldn't normally do. This could be to rob them, to kidnap them, kind of fill in the blank as far as the different ways that has been used. But that comes from the isolated alkaloid scopolamine. Scopolamine is used in the pharmaceutical industry. It's used to treat motion sickness. It's used during surgical operations. So it is something that is used in modern medicine, but it comes from that naturally derived plant alkaloid present in the nightshade family. Datura is also used in love divination. So it was believed that the Romani people would take the seeds of the datura plant and put them on a drum or a tambourine, and they would hit the side of it and observe the motions of the seeds to get answers on love as well as health, and just sort of a means of getting different answers for particular questions based on the movement of those seeds. Next, we have black henbane. Henbane has been used in a variety of different ways for its psychoactive and aphrodisiac properties, including the use in intoxicating aphrodisiac beverages, beer brewing, other ceremonial drinks. The seeds are incorporated into smoking blends and incense, as well as applied topically as oils and ointments. Henbane seeds were at one point used as fumigations or burned as incense in European bathhouses. This was to help lower people's inhibitions and create a more amorous atmosphere, because the people at the bathhouses were not just going to the bathhouses to take baths. So the henbane kind of helped to create this sort of sexy and seductive environment by intoxicating the people in attendance so that they could go through in their sexual revelries. So it was used to create lust and also sexual receptivity. But on the alternate side of that, we also see henbane being mentioned in the witchcraft trials during the Inquisition. The seeds were used as a means to break up lovers and to split up relationships. So in the trial record, we have one of the accused witches admitting to sprinkling henbane seeds in between two lovers in order to separate them. So again, we have on the one hand their aphrodisiac properties, able to create these feelings of love and lust and amorousness, but then on the other side of that, being used for manipulation, or in this case, the opposite of what an aphrodisiac would be used for, in order to split people up. So they kind of showed both that dark and light side of Venusian magic. Next one we have is deadly nightshade, Atropa belladonna. So just judging by its Latin name or its common name, also sometimes referred to just as belladonna, we see that it already has kind of this, seductive sort of air to it. So it gets the name belladonna, which means beautiful lady, from its use as a cosmetic. So it would have been used in very small doses to dilate the pupils, because it was believed during that time that having large pupils made a person look more sexually interested. So that was seen as increasing their attractiveness because of that. The purple juices of the belladonna berry would have also been used to, tint the cheeks and make them rosy, making them look inflamed, as well as coloring the lips. So it very much has this sort of role in not only physical beautification practices, but also for its use in glamour magic, creating sexual desire, creating attraction between two people, very seductive in that sense. It was also taken to increase performance. So this was for, everything from hunting to sexual performance. So the berries would actually be ingested um, to increase visual acuity, to help the hunters see better, to help enhance their reflexes, to help increase their night vision, and different things like that. And it was also used similarly to enhance sexual performance. So Venus is very much a sort of balance of very like polarized energy. So it's got this very seductive, attractive, and Venusian side to it, but then it's also got this very destructive, almost sinister, very kind of dominating side. So it kind of embodies both of those energies of Mars and Venus within the same plant. It's also associated with battle magic and warfare. It is a plant of victory and success, in addition to being a plant of attraction, abundance, sensuality, sexuality. In Romania, deadly nightshade is used in much the same way as the mandrake root. So deadly nightshade being more common in that area, it was used in rituals for fertility and marriage. So there were a lot of the same ritualistic methods of harvesting belladonna, just like we see with mandrake. So a lot of taboos surrounding how the plant was supposed to be collected, how it was supposed to be taken care of to ensure that its magical power was maintained for whatever reason the person was collecting it for. So again, the idea of mandrake also being kind of a concept as much as a particular plant. So there were a lot of plants and their roots that were used in a very similar way to mandragora. Then I have BDSM. This kind of touches on the idea of deadly nightshade being both a balance of Mars and Venus kind of an energy. So it has that very kind of seductive and what we would term feminine side, but then also on the alternate of that is very, very dominant, very Martian, very masculine. So as a plant, it's one that can, really mess you up if you're not careful with how you're working with it. But then it's also, one of our most important medicinal herbs, being used for pain relief and a variety of other medicinal uses. So kind of that balance between, again, that dark and light energy. Then we come to ashwagandha. This is also a member of the nightshade family. It is not poisonous like the others, but it is known for its aphrodisiac uses. It's also taken as a general tonic herb supporting the body's overall health. So it's known as an adaptogen. The adaptogens work on multiple different systems in the body to support overall health and wellness and to enhance the body's ability to cope with stress. So it will help you sleep better. It helps with anxiety. It helps with stress levels. It helps with sex drive. It helps with all sorts of different things that kind of collectively act as just overall support and health enhancing. Working with ashwagandha for its aphrodisiac effects, definitely notice, sensations of relaxation and euphoria, typically, taken as a tea, steeping the roots in hot water, drinking that for its aphrodisiac effects. It's also known to balance hormone levels, specifically testosterone. So a lot of men will take it for helping with increasing their sexual performance as well. But it is something that's good for anybody to take as just sort of an overall tonic and supportive herb. That is the conclusion of this presentation, Nightshades as Aphrodisiacs. If you're interested in learning more about these plants, you can check out my Patreon, patreon.com/poisonersapothecary, or visit my website, thepoisonersapothecary.com. And if you like this video, please like and subscribe, and I will be posting new videos here. Try and do it on a regular basis in the future. So thank you for watching. Happy Valentine's Day.